This is my first time sitting.
Good, how are you?
Okay.
I got mine to take home, I know Councilman.
Mr. College.
Good evening, City of College Park. Welcome to our Business and Industrial Development Authority Board meeting. I call the meeting to order with a full quorum of BIDA members. Today is March the 9th, 2023. Meeting called to order at 6:37 p.m. My name is Celissa Jefferson. I am the chair of the BIDA board. We shall begin our agenda with our roll call. First, our BIDA board members and any guests in attendance.
Lisa Parker, BIDA board member, Ward 2.
Jamel McKenzie.
Anita Brown-Cadis, BIDA board.
Okay. Jamel McKenzie, Ward 1 representative board member.
Bianca Motley Broom, mayor.
Leslie Zen, BIDA board member at large.
Anita Brown-Cadis, BIDA board member, Ward 3.
Sabritha, did you?
Sabritha Beasley, Administrative Assistant to Economic Development, also the Assistant Secretary Treasurer of BIDA.
Michelle Alexander, the Executive Director, BIDA.
Dan Lee, the attorney for BIDA.
Ben Camber, Project Manager with Economic Development in BIDA.
Ambrose Clay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Ken Allen, Councilman, Ward 3.
Joe Carter, Ward 2. Ed Wall, Financial Advisor to BIDA in the city.
Hello, I am Mercedes Miller, the Executive Director for the fabulous Georgia International Convention Center, the Gateway Arena, and the historic College Park Golf Course.
Good evening. My name is Fawn Sheffield. I'm representing the Sheffield Company as well as the collaborative firm, and I am a guest.
Great, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Let's begin with the review of our minutes from our February 9th meeting. Are there any changes or updates that people?
Yes, Madam Chair. I had a change in the list of people at the beginning, and I think that's already been made. Is that
Yes,
correct?
it's been corrected.
Do you have any additional packets? I didn't receive one.
Does anyone else have any other changes that needs to be made? Okay, so I call a motion for the approval of our minutes from our February 9th, 2023 meeting with the updated changes received that Sabritha has recorded.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor, please vote by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. For our meeting this evening, do we have any additions, deletions, amendments, or changes to the agenda? So I would like to add under new business, I would like for our attorney, Dan Lee, just to update us on our Georgia opens amendments, or changes to the agenda. Members joining us via online. Are there any other additions from any of the board members?
So, Madam Chair, would that be item B under 4? Is that what we're saying, adding item B?
It will be item...
Under new business?
Yes, it will be item B, under new business. Thank you. Okay, if that's the only addition, we will move forward with the review of our financial report for our quarter end of 2023.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have Ed
Oh.
Wall here to present on the financial report. There's 2 slides. Yes, ma'am.
We need to vote on the change
change.
to the agenda. Okay.
Okay, so since we had a new item agenda, a new item added to the agenda, we need to call a motion to vote for that addition. I call a motion for the addition of the new item agenda.
I move that we add item 4B to the, to new business.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All those in favor, raise their hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Our next order of business is our financial report review, our quarterly financial report review for 2023 will be conducted by Ed Wall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You want me to stand up at the podium? Is it okay to do it from here?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Yes, ma'am. So I don't know if all of you all have it before you in your package, but it's up on the screen as well. And I wanted to direct your attention to the budget 2023. All right, great.
I
Oh,
do
yes,
not
I
have
may
a copy. Do we?
do it from Saturday.
Do we have a copy of this? Is this in our packet?
Okay,
It's on each of your chairs. Part of the handout. It was a handout at each of your desk places.
Yeah, it's the last insert.
So in budget 2023, if you'll notice, you have $920,000 in rentals and commissions, and you have $3,514,000 budgeted for other. Those revenues are by and large pilot payments made by the hotels and the one office building, and it's the 1/8 of 1% fee that you have charged on various bond issues for developers that you have done for them, whether they be tax abatements or real bond issues like we did for Summersby last year. And the ground lease, some of the property that we have sold, we've sold some for cash money, we do some for ground leases, and the ground lease revenue is in that. If you'll notice the next column, 50%, the fiscal year is June 30th of each year, so this represents the actual results from July 1, 2022 to December 31st, 2022. So you can see we've collected $2.2 million on a budget of $4 million. You can see over here it's 70%. So you know 50% of the budget year has gone by, but you've collected 70% of the revenues. The reason that is the pilot payments are billed along with property taxes, and so they were all due. This number should be higher by $760,000, and we have one user, the office building, have yet to pay their 2022 pilot payment. And Lawyer Lee has filed a lawsuit against them, and I know y'all probably have talked about it from time to time, but that should be $760,000 greater. One of the things I'd like you all as a board, when you concentrate on it, these revenues are pretty well set. I mean, each time that we've done a transaction, the pilot payments are set, the ground lease is set. There's not a whole lot you can do here other than do new transactions to add to that revenue. But here's your budget. These are expenses that y'all control, and the budget was $922,000. 50% would be $461,000, but you've only spent $309,000 so far through December 31. That's a credit to you all and to Miss Alexander. In managing the department, you all are only at 34% of your budget, which you could be 50%. And we go down here, one of the big things that we can do is BIDA. This gain on sale of capital assets is selling land. And you can see we had a budget for $3.5 million for 2023. 50% would be $1,750,000, and so far this year we haven't sold any land. And I work nearly every day with Ben and Michelle and working to get land sold. You all are aware of all kinds of contracts that we've got, letters of interest. eventually this number is going to be big, but it's just not there yet. So we can control, as BIDA, what you spend, and we can control selling land. Most of the revenues are already fixed. Then I'll go on down, interest income. You can see it was budgeted on cash in 23 of $250,000, and 50% is 125. Ms. Lord Bradley just hasn't booked any interest yet to all the different funds. Interest rates this time last year was 0.06%. Today they're 4.2%. So when we come back to you with another quarter's interest, she'll probably have posted that interest, and you had cash at June 30, 2022 of $560,000. And so that money will be earning about 4.2% now. I go down to the next one is your payment of debt, $3,344,000. That's principal and interest. 50% would be $1,872,000. We paid $1,739,000. And remember, all of the debt that you have is debt that you have done for city projects. And so each one of these transactions, they have dedicated revenue sources to pay them. And so if we go down here to, it'll be on the next page, we have a transfer in down here, and you can see the transfer in was budgeted at $1,538,000. That transfer in will come from hotel, motel tax, and car rental tax to pay these debt service figures. And so far this year, through December 31, BIDA has a positive net income of $1,036,000, but the second half of the year will eat up most of that because you don't collect your revenues linearly. We talk about this, y'all have heard me talk about it before. The debt that BIDA owes the various different funds was right at $13 million. The auditor makes us write those amounts down each year because they don't believe me that we're going to sell land. And for the last 8 years, I've been talking about how much land we're going to sell, and we haven't been able to sell it like we should. And so rather than leave that, they're making us write it off. But even though they're writing it off, internally the city books, I think we'll have from the land sales, the current policy is that we'll take the first land sales and try to pay this $13 million back. It goes to these various different funds, but it'll wind up at the general fund because some of these funds in turn owe the general fund. So we have a $13 million debt. So when you all are thinking about selling land, the first $13 million ought to go to pay back the city general fund, and then after that, the revenue can be used to reduce debt by paying principal or for additional projects. And that'll be a debate that you all can have. The second page.
You have the clicker.
Ma'am?
You can
You
click
have
it.
the, do you have the clicker?
How did I do it? Hit the green button? Look at that. I did it. And so I just wanted you to see the transfers in. Hotel motel tax, $725,000, $250,000 from the GICC. This is a revenue source, a millage rate for the property around the GICC, and then $563,000 from car rental tax. That's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Does the board have any, thank you, Ed,
Yes, I
for
do.
your financial review. Does the board have questions?
Yeah, Ed, would it be possible for us to get a breakdown of the other operating expenses? I mean, I don't need it tonight, but just that we could have that provided, because some of that will allow us to see how funds have been spent. Oh, okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Michelle. Yeah. Okay. That's my only question.
Thank you. so this is the component within the budget that has our operating expenditures. As you can see, I'm just going to walk through what they are, because I understood from the chair that the interest was to see what is the budget and for what items. And then I did focus on one of the items that I understood there was specific interest about. Exactly. So this, what you're looking at is the budget worksheet that shows what we had for budget approved for 2021 and what our fiscal year 2022 and then our current budget for these items. So some of them, we don't even have budget allocated. Some of these are covered in our other budgets that the Economic Development Department manages. But it does include the second item. I'm sorry that it's so small on the screen. I anticipated it would be larger, but I'll send it out. But it's basically the question was about conventions and meetings. So for our meeting budget, it was set at $15,000 last year. There was an assumption that it was going to be for just the meetings, and it had anticipated $1,000 per meeting and $3,000 for our annual event. Some of the things that I don't think were understood or included, or no, were not included, were the costs of our stipends for our meetings, costs of our board training. And of course the city wants to finance that. You are required to take training and participate in that, and is happy, you know, that we need to make sure that that's supported, but it wasn't actually accounted for in that original budget. And then I just broke down some of the other components of where we are today on that $15,000 as it relates to our meetings. So we had already spent over $15,000 by January, the end of January. And that part of that, like I said, was we of course needed to figure out how to cover that overage, but it included the training, travel for training, the live stream and Zoom, as you see what that is for each meeting. So if each meeting budget was only $1,000, but covering our live stream and our Zoom is almost, you know, that's $875 each meeting. And that was one of the reasons last month I was bringing that to your attention to check if you are interested and want to continue live stream now that COVID's over and people can attend meetings, and especially because the bulk and meat of our meetings takes place in executive session. So I had raised the question, not for an answer last time, but I asked you to consider it so we can discuss it and share your preferences with council as they decide what budget actually gets allocated. Given where we are, I also recommended that we were going to start just having snacks to manage some of the coverage. The GICC actually subsidizes our meeting. They don't charge us the actual cost of our meals. That starts at about $50 really, but we do get charged $25, and even at that, you see at the bottom what that total is each year for our, if we have 8 regular meetings here hosted here at GICC, what that costs between that and our 4 joint meetings for all the staff, and only for staff and not necessarily for visitors, even at a conservative, was to be around $6,000 a year just for those meals here. And we have options. We talked about meeting elsewhere, so we could have more modest costs for our meals. But if we continue, then we anticipate that by the end of the year, the budget line I'm responsible for is going to be over by almost $8,000. And I'll work with city manager and our finance director, who will hold me accountable for us going over budget. The other items, so that was the meals and conventions. Others are legal fees, a modest, very small amount for appraisals and survey fees. These were higher when we were actively in acquisition mode on properties. There are still some properties to acquire within 6 West, for which our commercial broker had done all of the legwork for. And we're going to determine which ones are the most strategic that we really need to move forward with. And bring that to you and to council. And so those are fees that would cover those costs. Finally, there's a demolition amount. So there's a $50,000 included for demolition. So similarly, there's properties that we really do need to move forward with with demolition. And also we'll need to work with our public works and other facilities that are located on sites that are actively for sale. In fact, we've had, as you know, a recent LOI submitted for some of those properties, so that's going to become more urgent to put together the funds for migration and certain components for demolition, and then a modest amount for postage and stationery. But because we have on the economic development side a more robust budget for marketing and those pieces, and also we rely on our commercial brokers to really bring that piece of it. And along with the communications director and our Atlanta ATL district really supplement our marketing efforts and costs.
Okay. Sure. Yes, well, I wanted to add to there, the administrative budget, thank you, Michelle. The administrative budget was not included in our packet, so you'll be emailing that to us. I have further questions upon further review of it. Are there any line items allocation where we came under, because I can't see it, where we came under budget? And
so we're not done with the fiscal year yet. We won't know for the next few months. But yes, there are some areas that we anticipate will be under.
Okay, and with that, I'll definitely set up a meeting to discuss that further with you. I do understand your concern around the meal preparation for our meetings, because we decided to have all of our meetings at the GICC. And thank you, Mercedes, for the hospitality. And I do understand that we have our room comped, however, not the meals. I think that is still appropriate to have the meeting here. GICC is our brand ambassador for our professional space. We are the Business and Industrial Development Authority, where we are seeking, other business leaders within the community and developers, and I think that this space constitutes, to have a bare minimum, at least meal. So I would like to discuss further with you when the new budget, because we're gearing up for budget review, right? If we can obtain those dates to discuss any ramifications when it pertains to our meeting space.
Madam Chair, may I speak?
Sure.
I'm just kind of a little confused about the budget, Michelle. From April 11th through the 14th, I had a series of communication with our former city manager, Darnetta Tyus, and because at that time we were working on the budget for BIDA. And Ms. Tyus and I went back and forth about a budget for BIDA, but I'm not seeing that we looked at $2,000 for our GIDA training. There was enough money for every BIDA member to attend the Savannah.
And we're proposing that for the next budget. Yep.
And we had a strategic planning retreat included in there at $4,000. And then there was $13,680 allocated for the meetings. But as you said, the stipends were not included in that budget. So I can send you, so I'm just trying to see where that translated into what we're looking at right now.
Understood. And that makes sense that you met with the city manager and decided what would be going forward. The process doesn't stop there. So what happens then, the manager works with her other teams and then brings it to council. What our experience has been, often finance comes back and tells us where we need to cut. Okay. And bring based on whatever council directive is. So no, what we present and request is not likely to be what's in the final budget. So that what you're seeing here is from Althea and from the final budget. But I understand the confusion because you thought it, you understood that was moving forward. But that goes through a lot of machinations in the next months as council makes those tough decisions of what to cut and what to augment, and it's not a surprise.
Understood, and definitely going forward, I guess when we begin the budget review with our new city manager, I would communicate to you what our expectations are, and then if it can be provided what the final budget is, so that we're staying in alignment. And it's, fully disclosed. Okay. To
Yes,
board
the
member.
budget's an open process. I don't remember how many hearings council has on the budget to
Yes.
walk through all that in the public,
Exactly.
fully disclosed in public.
Does anyone have those dates available? Does anyone from mayor and council?
They're posted on the website.
They are on the website. Okay, great.
But currently, we just meet with the city manager
Mhm.
regarding the budget, and those should be on the website, or Michelle will have those.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Does anyone have any further questions?
I have one question. Is this on?
Yes.
This was back to the budget here, the previous budget, not you all, not your department budget. Question about the office building that wasn't caught up with their payments. If anybody can find out what the occupancy of the office building is, I'd like to get that information. So, Michelle,
I will tell you that I was told it was 100%.
It's 100% and they're not paying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, all right, well, I guess that's something we need to,
We'll provide tenancy, if you're looking at tenancy rates, Councilman.
well, is that gonna be on the delinquent tax list at our next meeting, I guess, if they're behind, or?
Yes, sir, I expect it would be.
It's not on the tax list. It's tax exempt.
They're tax exempt. Well, what are they behind in? Is it just
The pilot
pilot payments, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's-
760,000.
That's their payment for this past year. We've sued them, we've amended our lawsuit to cover it. We collected the previous 2 years, minus about 20,000 in penalties that are still contained in the lawsuit. They're seeking to appeal the assessment. Their assessment went from, help me with the numbers, Ed, it went from like 10 million to 21 million in 1 year, as did the millage rate doubled. They went from $460,000 in a pilot payment, which would have been their taxes, to all the entities, to this $760,000. And they've refused to pay it, and we have sued them.
Did you say their millage rates doubled? We doubled their millage rates?
Well, the city, all the millage rates, they would have paid.
So it's not quite double, but remember, we went up the millage rate a little bit.
We went up 1 mil.
But then we went up on the special district tax from 7.5 mils to 20 mils. That was in 2020, June of 2020.
Plus, the pilot payment is based on all the taxes they would pay, not just College Park.
All right, so we're gonna end up in court?
I think we'll win it in a summary judgment. I mean, there's no question they owe it. The only debate is they were going to pay this amount no matter what. They're just paying it all to College Park instead of to the various taxing entities because of the pilot agreement. So they don't really have a leg to stand on.
So the 2 hotels made their pilot payments despite the almost doubling.
And when they had terrible occupancy.
Okay, so there's no excuse for the office
There's
building,
none.
100% occupancy.
None.
Okay, all right.
It's a great point.
Great. Are there any further questions? Okay, thank you, Ed and Michelle, for our financial budget update. Next, we'll move into item B, which is the new business that I wanted our attorney, Dan Lee, to speak about, our Georgia Open Meetings Act as it pertains to the online meeting requirements.
It's a good idea, Madam Chair, to give this update because I suspect individual board members don't know this, but because of COVID and the problems everyone had with attending in person, the open meetings law has been relaxed to allow for 2 appearances via virtual meeting without any reasoning given per year. You are able to attend virtually with a doctor's excuse a limitless number of times, but the virtual appearance cannot be counted toward the quorum. So, you can vote, yes. The appearance is just like you're here, except for the purpose of calculating a quorum.
But Dan, I understand that part, but can the person who is, if you have a quorum present, physically present, can you in fact vote virtually?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Just 2 meetings. 2 meetings without a doctor's excuse.
2 meetings, you can attend virtually and you can vote, but there has to be a physical quorum present in the room.
The virtual appearance cannot be counted toward the quorum.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, if it passes.
Dan, so what happens?
Yes, are there any questions
Yeah,
from the board?
So what happens if a person has missed 2 meetings without a doctor's note and they're on? Can they vote
No, if they have,
virtually?
no, the rule says if you can only use a virtual appearance for voting without a doctor's excuse 2 times. So it doesn't mean
got it.
you can be absent 10 times and appear virtually 2 times and vote.
Okay.
Okay.
But after 2 times, if you're virtual and it's not a doctor's note, you can't vote?
You cannot.
Okay.
Okay. So I would just, thank you, Dan. I would just ask if a summary of that can just be emailed to the board members as just a reminder to keep everyone abreast. Okay? Are there any further questions in reference to the update from the Georgia Open Meetings Act?
Now, who's gonna keep track of all of that? Who's not here, who missed?
Our administrative,
Who's down to one more time? or-
Ms.
minutes would
Sabritha.
reflect it.
Okay.
Yeah, our administrative assistant treasurer. Okay, let's move forward to best part of our meeting sometimes is our GICC update from our executive director, Mercedes Miller.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, these are our revenues, and I'm gonna pause for a moment because this is the best we've had since COVID. Pre-COVID, our revenues were at about $9.8 million, and that was in 2019. And now we're at 86.7% of our budget, and I think we may get close to that number this year, which is humongous considering we had to totally shut down and had no business in 20 and 21, and not that much in 22. For the arena, their current revenues are at $1.2 million, and the golf course are at $219,000. Year-to-date, our operating revenues are 86.7 for the convention center, 58.3 for the arena, and 58.9 for the golf course. This is based on the budget that they adopted in 22-23.
Awesome.
Madam Chair?
Awesome.
Through
Yes.
what month, Mercedes?
That's through February.
This is February? the second quarter?
That would have been February's month end.
We're going by that, we should cross 10 in July, right?
We ain't gonna cross 10, but we gonna
don't
get
think
close
so?
to where we were in 19.
All right.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, for the month of February, these are some of the shows that we had, which was the Black Beauty Expo, the Jiu-Jitsu, DeKalb County, we did their awards dinner for the year, Delta Tech Ops, the Commander's Cup, that was at the golf course, the girl Lele, we didn't know what that concert would do. That concert actually sold out. So it was a great concert. They ended up with over 4,300 people, but it turned out to be a great concert. And Provoke to Live Again, that's a religious event. And then we had 3 Skyhawks games. Coming up in March, we just finished this weekend, we had Showstoppers and we had a varsity competition. So this weekend alone, I think we made $105,000 just in concessions between the cheerleaders and the Showstoppers. This weekend, we have the Groomers, which we used to be the pet show. So they're down in the exhibit hall. Thanks to those who came out to the Collaborative Firms event yesterday. It was very successful. In between this, also we added on the Airtropolis had a student fair today down in Hall D. So next week we have the National College Association admissions. We have that. We have Turner High School. Turner High School is an alumni breakfast. The number is wrong. It's not 100 people, it's 1,000 people. Okay. And then we have Delta Sigma Theta's debutante ball. And then we are We are coming to the end of the season for the Skyhawks. Their last game is March 18th. Tonight, they are playing the Ignite, and what's his name?
Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaquille O'Neal's son plays for that team, so he'll be at the game tonight. Sharif, the president of the G League, he's also going to be there. And I think Tony Ressler, the owner of the Hawks, is going to be there as well. So when I leave here, I'm going down there. If they make the playoffs, then we'll add other games. But right now, their season is scheduled to end. As soon as they end, the Dream is already ready to move in. We have found out that this year, the Dream is going to have 3 WNBA games that's going to be on ESPN, so that would be big for the area. Also, for the graduations, this year we're bringing Spelman back. Spelman has about 10,000 people. Then we still have all the South Fulton graduations. We have 8 of those that's going to be in the arena. We have a basketball tournament. We're also working on a MEAC SWAC basketball tournament for HBCUs for the arena as well. And then we still have the Clayton County graduations here in the Convention Center, as well as the Atlanta Area Tech graduation. So we're really busy and we're flipping rooms back and forth, but we're trying to make it happen. Are there any questions?
The high school basketball tournament, is that a regional or is that a?
That's a regional. The big basketball tournament they have is in Macon. One of the issues with us getting it here is that the hotels near Macon are going to run you less than $140. The hotels over here will run you $300. So they can afford to come to the center, but they can't afford for the kids to stay. So we've been working on it. For April, I forgot we have these. We have an Elite 8 duels. I don't know what that is. The Atlanta Streetwear Market, that is a clothing expo. We're back to Coca-Cola Scholars. They come once a year for all their for the graduating class. Price High School is doing their alumni breakfast, and then we come to the World Natural Hair Show. They usually get between 7,000 and 8,000 attendees for that show. And this year I'll be a guest speaker in the business expo that they have before the show. They're also going to have a big conference. Don't know what that is. And that's all I have. Are there any questions?
I just want to commend you and congratulate you, Mercedes Miller, on a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
You know, yesterday, the GICC was the host for the SMDO 2023 conference. Thank you, Mr. Michael Hightower, for the invitation. But being the host, it was a world-class event. It was incredible, and I really commend you for the first-class stage lighting, preparation, audio visuals. We really, really appreciate it. You make us look very well.
Thank you very much.
Yes, exactly.
Mercedes, I just appreciate you so much and all that you do at the GICC. And looking at these numbers, it just makes your heart glad. I had the opportunity to work with the promoters for the That Girl Lele show, and working with several schools here in the area, and we actually had some of the cast members visit several of the schools in the College Park area. We had rallies, pep rallies, getting ready for it. And what I love about it, it was such a positive experience because the focus was on anti-bullying and just, you know, it was positive. It was just seeing young people do great things. So it's just exciting seeing our arena, our GICC, being utilized to promote positive things in our community. Thank you again for all of your work.
You're welcome. Yes, Dan?
Will you be doing some of the hair modeling for that group this year?
I can if they need to.
I'm just checking.
I'm available. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mercedes. Next, we have our economic development reports. Before we give our reports, I wanted to just make an acknowledgement. We recently had our grand opening of the Rockland Homes subdivision community off of Herschel Road. It was a beautiful grand opening, and I'm just elated to have Rockland Homes, you know, who's the builder of the Atlanta Falcons, to be acclimated in the city of College Park. But I wanted to give acknowledgement to the BIDA board members. Most of us weren't on that board, but some of us were, and I just want to acknowledge, thank you for your efforts in helping us get that development to fruition. Okay, thanks.
Just going to run through a few of the things that your staff in the Economic Development Department has been working on, and it's both community development, which is Tasha Hall Garrison, it's the Main Street folks, it's Ben and myself. We attended we always have a presence at the merchants meeting every month. This month we were a speaker there, and it was a great turnout, and they just reminded us a lot of the kind of work that we still need to take focus on that side of town. I wasn't sure if you're aware that that your executive director is appointed to the Land Bank board, and we also are members, sit on the board of your Airport Atlanta Chamber, and we have a publication that's here, so if you haven't seen it, take a look and distribute that and publicize it. They've really ramped up and their efforts on their marketing. They're showing really big numbers on performance, and we're getting the word out and growing their membership. So I'm really happy to be on it, and I have to join a committee, so hold me accountable because I need to carve out even more time to pull our weight and take advantage of that great organization. As you mentioned, the Hawthorne Station Open House already. The Aerotropolis Alliance conducted a broker's bus tour March 1, and we were on the site. So they've done a couple of these since I've started to really keep us present and bring brokers to the sites, to strategic sites here on the south side. And of course, 6 West was one of those. You have members of our team participating in our Southern Cities Economic Inclusion Cohort, and this is where we're learning from sister cities how to really expand programs, or in our case, maybe more initiate programs, and what we need to do to move the needle to have all boats rise and pay attention to equity matters, not just for the, I shouldn't say it that way, both internally as an organization, as well as for the community, of course, so that we can, expand that work. And that's going to be a heavy lift with purchasing and expanding what purchasing is already doing with their work fairs and procurement and vendors opportunities. They have on our webpage is really dedicated to how to be a vendor with the city, and there's been, there's dedicated efforts, and they're talking again about the next fair. There was a tour conducted with the Integral Group. We attended that, so that looked both at the studio over in the Dorville area, as well as what was a housing authority project and a housing program that Integral was part of. So they shared their experiences there, and also answered questions about the financing and deal structures on those. And then you already mentioned also the South Metro event yesterday. Michael said that over 700 people who actually attended. If that was followed up with on parking or how that's verified exactly, but you just felt the buzz, and also all of the vendors who were there. So we're for those vendors because they showed up and they're showing interest, and we want to make sure we follow up with those. So that's part of our team's work. Announcements, March 16th, if you haven't bought your wine glass, $25 gets you some wine, plenty of good wine along both Main Street and over on Virginia Avenue, and followed by music sponsored with the Parks and Arts and Culture events. Michelle Johnson's group putting on music live at on the lawn. We have an expo. This is, Ben and I have a big push with our marketing effort to meet with Metro Chamber and the Georgia Economic Development offices at the state level to show off our wares, get in front of them, make sure they keep us front and their attention, and then we're going to be building a schedule where we regularly touch base, so we're staying front of mind when any new site locators or large businesses come to town, come to the state. I wanted you to be aware that ARC is really pushing forward. They came and gave a presentation about some of the big infrastructure dollars that are out there, but it really takes a heavy lift to go after some of these. Jackson has had us and other members of the, our consulting team in the engineering side of the world putting together and preparing so we can really make a big push for these big cycles, and especially for the infrastructure on the transportation side. One that ARC just submitted for was one of the dedicated congressional funds, and that was specifically for the Flint, and that's for millions of dollars. ARC is really ramping up because, not just because of what it means environmentally, but it's a big economic development impact as it generates attention and destination further south of here, as well as the nature preserve that the city's committed to. So hopefully this will help finance that. That's the intent, right? We're constantly looking for additional sources of funding. We did not get the, let me just move on, sorry. I wanted you to be aware that we're releasing the RFQ for our commercial broker. It's taken me a little longer than anticipated. I want to shout out Will Moody has been exceptionally helpful, of course, but this does go through BIDA, right?
Yes.
So it's not a city procurement, but he is offering all of his services to help us make that a successful and as efficient process as possible, and legally as airtight as possible.
Exactly.
We've only had a handful, my prior pipeline report, I felt like we were constantly meeting and fielding calls. And I think I've been more judicious on, when I field a call to answer, to filter through who might be serious or not. So just this month, I've only had 3 more promising leads. These are on that pipeline report that I provided you. I'm not going into detail because this is just pipeline. This is all talk.
Yes.
But I wanted you to know there's lots of interest, and we're out there working to bring in additional interest until we get the serious big fish.
Okay.
That's my report.
Okay. So I just want to add, thank you, Michelle. I would just want to add there that a part of the announcements too, March 16th, we also have the town hall meeting for Ward 4. We'll be attending the wine and stroll and then segue to the town hall Ward 4 meeting. The other question that I had, can you bring back your slide? It was something on, yes, so the RFQ. Can you just kind of take me through or take the board through that process? So tomorrow we're releasing it, and then what's your timeline expectations for?
Is it April 10th? We have 1 month. I'm keeping it very short.
Keeping
We've
it
already
short.
been
Okay.
priming with some of the larger, more competitive, and also some of our local existing commercial brokers who are aware of our project, and we'll be targeting, so we have about 25 or so that we're targeting to send to, as well as a broader release. And then we're also working with ULI to identify and target select premier commercial brokers.
Okay.
And the eligibility and the criteria does focus, though, on the specializations within 6 West.
Okay.
So this is specifically to sell 6 West. And so the criteria isn't, hey, show us you're a big firm. It's, can you do these specific specializations and demonstrate the specialization between medical office, entertainment, sports entertainment, film entertainment, arts and cultural entertainment. I mean, we got very specific on not just general commercial.
Understood.
So that they can demonstrate understanding the unique aspects of the concept plan.
Okay, got it. And then along with that is we are contracted with Keller Williams. And can you just walk through which land they are in charge of managing for us?
Yes. So that contract was renewed for being our seller's rep for the 19 acres that's within the 55 acres on Herschel Road.
Okay.
They had in the past worked on the Jamestown area, but that has not been actively included. And I don't think they have additional properties on the seller side.
Okay.
On the acquisition side, and this is something, so on the acquisition side, they had been our broker, but and they did a lot, and did the acquisition for all the properties that are within 6 West that were actually acquired. They also did legwork for about 40 other parcels that either because of the complexity of the deed and the extraordinary legwork. So just for an example, if there was an heir of an heir who didn't even know they were an heir. So they pulled all of this information, and then COVID hit. So when the budget, when it was a halt on budget and any further acquisition, they stopped essentially midstream, right? So to the degree when it's appropriate to talk to council about potentially renewing that, those are considerations to make without going into a discussion on contracts.
Understood. And they do contact you and provide you current updates?
They are, yes.
Okay.
They have been exceptionally helpful. Any question I have, even if it's not related, they've just been, and they'll do legwork for us. It's pro bono. They've been an exceptional partner.
Okay. Excellent. Are there any further questions?
I got a few. Michelle, so Keller Williams, it sounds like they were handling some assemblage for us.
They were, yes. You all had them under contract.
When did we put them under contract? Was this a couple of years back? Or?
Yeah, well, maybe 2019. I'd have to get the exact date, sir.
Okay.
I'll have to get the exact date. Maybe 2018?
All right. The other question, where is the pipeline report? You mentioned that there was a pipeline report for these projects.
That's one of the handouts that was left at everyone's. I don't know if we still have an extra one for the councilmen, but we left them at everyone's place.
Now,
We'll bring it down to you. We'll bring you a hard copy.
Is it this PSA status summary? Is that what it is? Or?
There's another one. So
There's another.
this one is the PSA LOI status. That's the real deal, and then pipeline is we're talking.
Okay.
Just talking, but I want you to be aware of who's talking with us.
Last thing, the Metro Chamber GEDA, where is that going to be held?
It's probably, is it at the Metro Chamber offices? I have to look it up.
Well, if you could just send
At the Georgia Experience Center, yes.
if you could just send everybody a
Great.
heads up invite, so I won't forget it if I want to go.
Yeah, well, I'll look at how they're targeting participants. Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Okay. Does that conclude our questioning around our economic development reports? Okay, we shall move into our other issues. There's one issue that, a few. First, I know last year we had had the discussion around our business year, our year-end business rewards. Awards, excuse me. And we had discussed about there's so much new growth that's happening within the city with small business development, and our criteria around the business recognition to select the nominees. We wanted to discuss about making some changes to those criteria. So we don't have necessarily the information in front of us, but I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the board that may come up for our next meeting for kind of think about it, go back to the paperwork that you received and kind of review and think about some suggestions on what you would like to see in recognizing our small business owners within the city of College Park. My other issue pertains to when we had the open house at the Hawthorne Station. I discussed this with Michelle in reference to our decorum. Oftentimes, or sometimes I know that we have the grand openings, but sometimes BIDA is kind of omitted, and it just so happened the economic development group was omitted too. I just really would like us to really remain cohesive as a city, that it takes a village for us to continually to grow. And I think our relationship with the state as well as with the city and mayor and council, those acknowledgements should be done. So as a decorum, I would just like to add, if we have future grand openings, that we receive the notification and that we be a part of any project that comes through that needs BIDA's approval. And I would like for acknowledgement to be done accordingly. Are there any other issues that someone would like to bring forward? Any of the members?
Madam Chair, did you want to review some of the results from the retreat?
Oh, yes.
You had talked about some of the goals.
Thank you for, yes. So also we discussed about, remember we had a strategic planning event, and the board at that time created some community goals from that strategic planning event. And I wanted us to be able to review some of those goals as well and kind of walk through, and maybe later on, not today, but once that information is emailed to the board, if we can go through and review those community goals and kind of think about a goal that you would like to foresee for our board to work towards. And so Michelle can read out the ones that were chosen.
Sure. So I think this reviewed all of those that were proposed, and then you see the kind of votes or support they got from the rest of the board that at least was present. But the one that won the votes, I've got all 5 of the folks present, was to establish policies, procedures, and internal controls in small bites. So I guess that's sort of a workflow that's digestible. I hope we've been meeting, or at least working towards that objective with our internal SOPs, the new guideline for our LOIs and procedures and criteria, and the administrative SOPs. The other item you all talked about was having an education and training or retraining program. You'd thought about having it monthly as some type of educational series to focus on certain issues related to either economic and real estate development and or issues and strategies related to the financial tools available, and that was for the folks. So those were the 2, I think, that clearly rose to the top of that you'd like to the board to engage in. The rest, next was how to, clarifying the board of what we do as a board. And the next were engaging in educational training and maybe some additional customized training. There was a talk about conducting a listening session with real estate developers. And that only received 2, and I would say that staff is absolutely dedicated to that. We have used ULI in the past to conduct roundtables and try to have like 3 or 4. I think looking, like I mentioned to you all, having events, regular events, those are going to be our opportunities, and then taking advantage of what Aerotropolis offers in organizing. Been stupendous. It's been a real help given our limited resources. So hopefully you'll be seeing that as we report every month that we are achieving some of those, even though you didn't put that as your primary goal. Sure. Staff is committed to that. Let me just go to my own so I can read it. You wanted to check about best practices and compare other development authorities. You looked at communication tools that better explain BIDA, and we fully recognize the work we have in front of us to get our webpage better. And the communications director, she's a powerhouse. She is chipping away at the different components. It feels like a long time. She's only started since August, but we've met, and we recognize how important that is. And also, we'll be working with the PR firm that the city has hired and see what it takes to get ours written in coordination with our new commercial broker. Great. Our BIDA and economic development's communications. And then you wanted to talk about guiding values and principles on your decision making. And I would add, I think it's important for us staff to prepare some criteria and things for you to consider for the different types of projects that come before you. In fact, this will come up later with a case that you have on your executive session. Shared vision, and then a directory. Those were your items. Those were the results from your strategic planning efforts.
Exactly. And it's a long list, and there have been some goals that we have accomplished through there, but if there are any other suggestions, or once the board has their chance to just reacclimate themselves to those goals, should anything come up new, we would definitely like to work together towards accomplishing much more. So we'll deal with that later.
And we, just a reminder, check
Madam
your
Chair.
email.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Madam Chair, this is
Yes.
Anita. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Well, you all can hear me. I'd like to suggest that, we talked about our concept of a workshop. That might be a good place to tighten up our schedule on our meetings as we become more efficient in discussing PSAs and things in executive session, to have a workshop session where we cover at least a half an hour discussion of some of the key items from our strategic planning group of over a year ago. I think that I would relish that opportunity to strengthen our organization.
Awesome. Yes, I concur with you, Vice Chair Anita, because you're right. I think that with the growth of our city and the attraction of opportunities that we have here for development, having that opportunity for our economic development area to have a workshop specifically that's similar to what mayor and council do as you entertain new developments for the city. So I think that's an excellent idea, and we can add that accordingly, Sabritha, and work towards implementation. Our next, are there any other issues under our other issues category? If not, that concludes our other issues, and I will call now for a motion to exit our regular session and enter into our executive session for purposes to discuss real estate matters.
So moved.
Okay. do
Madam
we have
Chair,
a
I move
second?
we move into executive session.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
That was second by,
Trying to be active here, trying to be there.
okay, no problem. That was second by Member McKenzie. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. It was second by our Secretary Treasurer, Lisa. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Aye.
Thank you. We may ask now that our distinguished guests may exit the meeting. We thank you for coming here. And then if we have any further information that's needed, we can call you back in during our executive session.
And Madam Chair, I think I'm supposed to stay in here.
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
but
You want us to step out and come back?
yes, thank you. No, you're fine, and we'll let you know when we're ready. Okay.
But I'll go home if you want me to.